G'day and welcome to the Andrew Price podcast and welcome to the start of 2021. Or at least maybe it should be a couple of days out. I don't know when this will go up, but yeah, we did it, guys. Boy, what a year. I'm sure you are sick of every pundit complaining about 2020, so I won't harp on it too much, but hey, you know, it was something. It was a year of perspective, right? It's like, I up until this year, I truly thought that anyone who complained about the year just had like a lack of self-awareness, or awareness of maybe like, just, I don't know, like your own perception of things tend to be like, you exaggerate how bad things are right now. But then when you look back, like basically someone did like this Twitter, like every year you can go on like Twitter and just type in like any year, 2008, this year sucked, or terrible year, or something like that. And you just see people complaining about any year that just came past. And you put it all in a compilation. It's like, oh, 2008, that sucked. Can't wait for 2009. 2009 blew. That was terrible. Can't wait for 2000. And, you know, and it goes on and on. 2020 though, I mean, I want to say that people are overreacting, but hey, it was a once in a lifetime pandemic, which honestly sounds scarier than it was, right? All things considered. Maybe it was scarier for places in, I don't know, outside of Australia where I am. Things are pretty chill here. Unless if you're in Melbourne, you guys had it pretty rough. You had some draconian lockdowns for 8 weeks or something. You can't leave the house for more than an hour. You got to stay within 5Ks. Like, it's kind of funny hearing people in America complain about like the government telling people you have to wear a mask and, you know, you do this kind of thing. Like, people in Australia were getting arrested for being outside the house. Like, I don't know what we've done, but evidently we've given up some of the freedoms that America is trying to defend, I guess. I don't know, but it worked, right? In this exact circumstance, it was one of the things that possibly worked. I don't know. This isn't, I'm sure there's also going to be a whole bunch of side effects around that kind of thing. Who knows how many people committed suicide. Anyways, great start to that. This is an episode about the future, 2021, the 7 trends in 3D that I predict for 2021. Things to be on the lookout for, because every week for over a year now, I have been compiling a list of the top finds that I find that week. It's a newsletter. It's called This Week in 3D. I don't post it anywhere. It's not on like an article or anything. It's just in an email. And I just post it, right? And I just find interesting things. So it's like technology. Maybe it's like a making of from the latest VFX movie, or like a video game technology, or maybe it's just tutorials and resources and things that I find, but I just try and compile it all in there. And because of that, I feel like I've got my pulse on a lot of areas. Like, I've noticed like different technologies and machine learning in this area, and like this thing that's about to blow up, and what's that going to mean for the industry. And so I thought, probably be interesting to other people as well. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this episode. My 7 predictions. And predictions are always wrong, but they're fun to listen to, right? So these I guess I would call trends, because they're not really a prediction. It's sort of things that are already on the rise, and like just be on the lookout for it, I suppose. Anyway. Oh yeah, if you want to get on that newsletter, by the way, because I did just shout it out, just go to blenderguru.com/this week in 3D, or click the link in the show notes or description or whatever, and you can sign up to that. It's, like I said, I don't post it anywhere. You just have to be on the list to get it. Anyways, all right, let me get a drink here, because already my voice is going. It's a great to have at the start of a podcast. Nice clearing my throat noise. All right, number 1, machine learning is going to be picking up speed. So 2 years ago in 2018, I did a talk at the Blender conference, and the talk was on how AI will change 3D. And I said, be on the lookout for machine creep, as in machine learning creeping in to the tasks in the software that we already use. So perfect example, in Photoshop now, things that you used to have to use for like a pen tool, like click and go, like I do thumbnails for each of my videos, right? And I have to like get the pen tool out and go around my ear and then do my hair, and the hair's always annoying and it's such a big problem. And then I was like looking on YouTube, like maybe there's an easier way to do this. And then I'm like discovering that in Photoshop 2021, there's this feature called just like select or like instant object select. Like you just like click a button and draw over it and it just like detects what it is you're trying to select and does a pretty good job. So now I literally go like select subject and then it goes bing. And then you get like a little brush tool out to say not this part, not this part. And then it just does it, right? It's brilliant. And that is a perfect example of machine creep. I think in 2021, it's going to be more like machine pace. Right? It's going to go from a creep to kind of like it's picking up speed. And then maybe in years 2, 3, and 4, 2022, 3, and 4, it'll be like a sprint, right? So machine learning is slowly taking away some of the tasks that we had to do manually. And you should not fear this because nobody watched Jurassic Park as a kid and saw the T-Rex come out in the rain and flip over the car and then go like, wow, when I grow up, I want to spend 14 hours a day using the pen tool, rotoscoping out some girl's hair in the background of a shot, right? Nobody has that as a dream. We all dream about telling stories, right? We were like, oh, I want to make a movie. I want to do one with like a dinosaur fight. I want to do like Star Wars. It's all the fun stuff. And the software gets in the way of that fun stuff because we want to do lightsaber fights. And we end up spending, 80 to 90% of our time doing, like motion tracking and then like decompressing shots and stabilizing things and just trying to make it work the way we have in our mind, right? Software that does it for us is a good thing. So I really think you shouldn't fear it unless you are literally one of those guys in a farm in India that's one of like thousands of people working in a big industrial block somewhere that is literally doing rotoscoping frame by frame for some of the big movies or whatever. Yeah, you guys should worry. But that is technical work. It's technical, it's data entry. And I think you would probably already be aware of tech coming to take away your job. So it shouldn't really be a surprise. If it is, read some articles online and do that for your next job so you don't get caught out. Truck drivers got the same notice to you. I think you are a little bit more resistant to it, but come on, guys. Self-driving is coming. You just got to count down the days, right? So anyways, the point is machine learning is coming. So in Adobe's products this year in just Photoshop, there was one-click sky replacement, black and white to color. You click a black and white and it goes bam, like, oh, not from 1920s to 2000, right? And it just goes instantly. Instant object select, I already talked about. Rotoscoping is in Autodesk Flame 2021. It's coming to After Effects. They've also got like relighting faces, so it'll detect where the face is and build like a mesh over the face in every single frame, and then it will light it so that like change the light, move the light from here to here, and it's like you're working with a 3D model, but it's a video. That's really cool. And then you've also got what else? Things to look out for as well. Depth sensing. So I've seen this in, I think it's going to be used for like mobile applications, but a video on your phone or something, it'll detect where a person is, where a car is, where a lamppost is, etc. And I mean, it was sort of used gimmickly in this video, but like, oh, you can make balls sort of fall over everything or something like that. But really, for a lot of compositors that work in VFX, that's incredible because it's actually already in Autodesk Flame 2021, which I learned is actually a software that a lot of people use. I never really heard of it until like a couple of years ago. And I said on Twitter, like, does anyone use this? And people were like, yeah. No, it's like industry standard, and it's not even close to After Effects for many things. So, yeah, it's got a lot of this stuff already. But yeah, machine learning is it's looking at hundreds of thousands to millions of video frames and figuring out like the correct way to do something, and then guessing how to do it itself. And then going, that's wrong, compare it to the original, that's wrong, it should be more like this, and then trying it again, that's wrong, do it more like this. It's actually how you learn it yourself. That's how like deliberate practice, we talked about that in the last episode. It's kind of similar to that. But anyways, machine learning, it's doing it. So how is this going to impact you? I mean, it really shouldn't, unless you are a technical artist and you're just like, you're doing the equivalent of data entry, like manual labor. You're not having fun at work anyway, I would assume. If you're an artist, if you actually enjoy what you do, you should celebrate because it means that the cost of creating things is coming down and down and down and down. You don't have to hire like crews and farms out of India to do your rotoscoping. You can do it yourself in like a few minutes, right? I saw a demonstration with After Effects. Like you have rotoscoping and you just like draw over the person, and then it will guess frame to frame like what the outline of the person should be, and it's pretty damn good. Well, actually, no. I mean, it was a sneak peek preview of After Effects, and it still had frames where it was guessing things that were out. So I'm sure there's still probably a lot of manual work. The preview videos are always like better than they advertise. But anyways, what else I was going to talk about? I think like retopo in 3D. If we just talk about 3D, like what's something that would impact that? Like, yeah, retopo is one of those tasks that every single artist hates. And yet we have to do it because all the software that says retopologize your mesh. And for people who don't know what retopo is and what retopologize is, it's like if you do sculpting, you want to move it around like clay, and it's working with like millions and millions of polys, right? If you need to render it, it has to be less polys than that. 2 million polys or whatever for a face. It's just too much. So you need to retopo it to go like simplify this to the basic shapes, especially if you want to animate it, right? And all of the programs that do it just do a generally poor job. The best I've actually seen is 3ds Max. I actually talked about this in like an email 2 weeks ago. The next version of 3ds Max, I think 2021. It's got some amazing retopo. Maybe it's 2020.4 or something. But yeah, it's supposed to be like industry best. So Autodesk is waking up, man. They're getting out there. But that is something I can really see as like, it's just a matter of years until there is software that goes like, whether it is like, retopoing a photo scan tree trunk, or it's a person going to be used for an animation. You just take in any mesh, no matter how horrible and jagged and triangular and terrible it is, you hit a button and it will automatically put the lines and the loop lines and everything where it needs to be. So that would be great, right? Anyway, style transfer, that's another one. That's like when you take like your photo from your phone and then you go like, what do I want it to look like? I want it to look like a painting from this Picasso painting, and then it will do it in that style. Everything I've seen so far looks pretty bad. It doesn't do a generally good job, but I did see some interesting one. It was like The Incredibles, if it was real life. So they got like frames from The Incredibles and then they put it through this style transfer thing and they made it look realistic, and it was really good. It was on Twitter. That usually these sort of preview tech things they show you, it's like the best case. So I don't know how many times they had to try it and how many tweaks and whatever till it worked, but it's like best case scenario. It usually means like, 2 to 5 years away, it might be in your software, and sometime in there, it might actually be good for production, but it's coming, just a matter of time. I wouldn't be worried about it unless you're one of those people that is, a technical artist. All right, so that was number one. I guess I shouldn't talk too long because goodness sake, this will take forever. Number 2, NFT is going to rise and then fall. NFT stands for non-fungible token, and it's something you might have only heard about in the last month because Beeple, the famous 3D artist, so famous he was talked about on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan gave him a portfolio review. That was cool. He's been doing daily renders every day. He draws a new render of something weird and wacky, whether it's Santa Claus bleeding in the snow, or Elon Musk on Mars being crucified by some aliens. It's all weird stuff, in the words of my wife, because I was telling her about Beeple, and she's like, yeah, I didn't like his stuff. It's so weird and creepy. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably the best description of it, weird and creepy. But a lot of people love his stuff. And he got offered to have his artwork on a site called Nifty Gateway, which specializes in NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So what this is this uses the blockchain to verify ownership of an asset, right? And so Beeple sold some of the ownership to his artwork in the forms of NFTs. So you could say, I own a piece of Beeple's artwork. It's one of, there's only one of them, right? And I have it. And what do you get for it? Nothing. the artwork is still online, right? Anyone can look at it on his Instagram page, watch the video, whatever. But you get to say, I own it, and it's verified on the blockchain, and that's mine. And in his case, actually, he also gave people a physical little, it was like a display, like a kind of a photo display thing that streamed the artwork through it. It was, I guess, because it's such a new thing, people are like, I don't want to pay for something, I'm not even going to get anything in the mail. So he gave this sort of physical thing. But the real value is in that NFT. It's a non-fungible token. Now, sounds gimmicky, sounds scammy. In the words of my mom, it sounds like a pyramid scheme. And I said, I don't think you know what a pyramid scheme is. It's not a pyramid scheme. It sounds like all of those things. And yet, get this, he just sold last week or the week before 20 artworks on Nifty Gateway for a record $3.5 million total. Wow. $3.5 million. Like, these are artworks that are like going 80 grand each, 100 grand each. And what do you get for it? You get to say, I own it, right? It's a crazy concept. And then at the same time, when you think about it, it's not that crazy, because like, what's a baseball card or a Pokemon card, right? Like, is it really worth $1 million for how much it costs for the cardboard? Like, no, you're getting one of a thing. And yes, you could say it has a physical item, but the same way, like, it doesn't, I mean, what's the gold standard built off of, right? Like, we're going like, oh, the currency is backed by gold and it's in a bank somewhere, and we're kind of believing that gold exists. It's this sort of, it doesn't make any sense, and yet it does at the same time. Like, what we value as humans is weird, right? It's I was listening to a podcast when they're talking about like the economics of currency and how it works, and they used to go like in the old days and find like bronze and then bring it back to the empire, and then they go, all right, this is how much bronze we have. So when you trade these tokens, at least we'll know that if anything was to happen, we could buy the bronze with the token. So therefore, it's backed by the bronze that we've got. And then apparently on the when they were traveling back with the bronze across oceans on boats or something, like one of the boats sank, and the bronze lay on the bottom of the ocean floor. And they went back to the empire and they went, well, it's okay because we know where the bronze is. So even though we can't collect it and we can't hold it and we don't have it, we believe and we know that amount of bronze exists. So therefore, we can still count that, which is wild. Doesn't make it like, it's like, how does that work? And yet, yeah, no, it does make sense, right? The whole thing of like how are diamonds valued, all this kind of thing. I think NFTs it's a completely new thing. So a lot of people are calling it sort of like a new way, like the latest way to trade art. I think even one of the top auctioneers, Christie's or Sotheby's, one of those two auction houses, have started trading in NFTs as well. And I think Beeple's sale of 3.5 million shows the potential there, right? Like this is a crazy thing. Now, because anyone can enter into it, I also think a lot of artists, when they heard the news of Beeple, saw dollar signs in their eyes, and they think I can just upload my images as NFTs and I'm going to make a whole bunch of cash because there's a bunch of fools out there who will buy it, right? And therefore, I think a lot of people are going to do it. They're going to make very little to nothing from it. And then NFTs are going to be known as like a time waster, right? Or like a craze that like Pokemon Go that like everyone jumped on and blew up and then just went, poof, right? One of those crazy things. I think that's what it's going to be known for because everyone is going to jump on it. And the reason that artworks have value is something that it's always baffled me. There's a great book on it called The $12 Million Shark, which goes into it. And it seems to be mostly based on the auctioneer houses that selected artworks to appear in their auction. That's what gave it the value. So it wasn't actually the artwork themselves. It was Sotheby's and Christie's that said, we want to place that in our auction, and therefore we think that's a hot artist. And then everyone wants to buy that, right? It's comes back to that belief thing. It's like, why do I think that art piece is going to be worth a lot? Well, because all the other art pieces that this auction house has sold was also worth a lot, right? So this stupid, simple painting that just sold for $2 million or something, it's worth it because the other artists that they went through have now quadrupled 8 times, 10x, whatever, what it sold for at the auction. So therefore, it's a good bet. It's crazy, but at the same time, it's not really. So I think NFTs are there. I think, how does this impact you? Unless you have a large following already and you already make art which pushes the boundaries of storytelling. And I don't think there's many of those artists out there, to be honest. Like when I was thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, why do people like people's artwork? Like it's technically very simple. Like, I mean, he would even say things could be way better in each of these renders. I mean, they're daily renders. How good can they really be? But it's telling stories. It's ideas expressed in a new medium, 3D, and it's breaking boundaries in terms of like, I mean, breaking boundaries, it's such a cliche thing to say, but I mean, how do you define what art is? It gets into some sort of airy-fairy stuff. But anyway, there's very few artists, I would say, on ArtStation that do it very well. There's probably that one Russian guy who does that weird, what was that one, God of something? I talked about it on the newsletter, but he did this, the one of like, they're like digging something up out of the grain. It looks like it's taken with flash photography. And then there's this monster that comes out of it. I have to put it in the show notes because that's incredible. But I reckon that guy, probably a few other, Nikita Veprikonov or something. Sparth, probably he could. And you'd have to, I mean, like in Beeple's case, it's so unique. It's like that dream that, you know, every kid wants to, you know, star in the NBA or be like a star football player because there's that one who's paid like $10 million for the season and they go, I'm going to do that. And it's like the top 0.0000001% of anyone who tries to do this is what actually succeeds. And then of those, it's another tier that actually makes it to the peak, you know, whatever level. So I think the same with Beeple. He's the top. He's the starring quarterback, whatever you want to call it, in his field that became a success because of the talking point around his art, doing one artwork every single day. He's been on Joe Rogan forever. Like, you know, he's become part of the culture, and that's what's led to the insane value of the art. That's my theory. So I would say, unless you're one of those people, I don't know, I wouldn't say your chances of making much on NFT are slim. Are very high, but what do I know? I could be completely wrong, and maybe I'm slow to react, and NFTs are the new dollar. It's the new gold standard. I don't know. But that's my hunch. I think it's one of those things that everyone's going to jump on to try and make some money, and then they're just not going to do it. And I reckon it's like it'll surge, and people go, that's stupid, like Bitcoin, and then it would just sort of like fizzle out, and then just slowly rise over the next decade. That's what I think. All right, could be totally wrong, but we'll see. All right, this is taking a while, huh? Blender, number 3. Blender is going to turn some more heads with version 3.0. That is my trend prediction for 2020 because for whatever reason, Blender's release numbers have been weird up until now. It has been always version 2 since I started using Blender 15 years ago. So I started at version 2.2 something, and then the big release that was like, whoa, was 2.5. Okay, still in the 2s, and it was, whoa, 2.5, smoke sim, cycles rendering, all this kind of new stuff. And then there was like a decade, right? And then there was 2.8, right? And 2.8 was the new thing. And my job as the Blender guru and someone with a YouTube who tries to get people into Blender and 3D and teach them stuff, had to try to sell that and go, Blender 2.8 sounds like a minor release, but actually it's a major release, a milestone release that they've been working towards for a decade. Now, why do I have to give that spiel? Because they picked the stupid versioning numbers, 2.2, 2.5, 2.8. You should have called it 3, 4, and then 5, whatever. Anyways, I think they finally got the memo. I think they've picked it up on that it's silly. I think I even asked Ton at one point, like, why are we calling it 2.8? And he said on Twitter, like, I think it would be disrespectful to all the people that have worked on Blender, knowing that it's going to be called 2.8, to suddenly go and change it to version 3. And I thought, that's A stupid reason. I'm sorry, Ton, that doesn't make any sense. You can just say to everyone, like, no, we're calling it version 3 because look, it's like a whole new piece of software now. Anyways, point is mid next year, version 3 is coming out. I don't think there is any major interface changes between 2.8 or 2.9, whatever we're on now, to version 3. I believe it's much of the same interface that you're used to, but with a whole bunch of new things since 2.8 came out. So 2.8 came out with since 2.8 has been released, we've gotten OpenVDB support, UDIMs, multi-res, library overrides, USD support. All of those things alone are like required for production. Like a lot of things just like teams of people need to work on. Those things solve those problems for those teams of people. So people that came to 2.8 because they heard it was like going to be amazing, and then maybe they tried it in production, but then it didn't have those things, they might have gone like, oh, it's still just a hobbyist tool. I think there's been a lot that's been added since then to mid next year when version 3 comes out, that I think 3 is going to make a splash. So I believe it's going to turn a lot of heads. So if you're already a Blender user, great. Congrats. You've picked a software that is on the rise. If you're not, I expect more of your coworkers to bring up Blender and go, wow, have you seen what Blender's doing? Blender looks really cool right now. Expect more of that discussion. So that's my prediction, 2021. Expect that. Number 4, because we're going to move along. Procedural geometry spreads. So Houdini has had procedural-based stuff, right? Just as a workflow. Houdini is just sort of procedural. Everything is node-based. It's had that for a while, but other software has been slow, and like Houdini is sort of seen as this outlier that's doing this weird thing. Now, I think most of the industry has got the memo that nodes are awesome and everything should be nodes. So Blender's had this idea of like the everything nodes project for a while, and particle nodes that I remember talking to a developer about 5 years ago at the conference and going like, come on, man, how much longer is it going to be? I don't want to come back here next year and there's not going to be any particle nodes. And that was 5 years ago, right? And it's just been like kicking the can down the road. Like, when is this thing actually gonna happen? And then thankfully, Geometry Nodes was announced as it's like now they're doing sprints for Blender development, which is fantastic, by the way. Love that. And it's now going to be in the next version of Blender. So 2.92, I think we're up to. Is that right? So it's going to be in that release, and it's already in alpha. Like, you can already try it in the latest, like the cutting bleeding edge version of Blender. You can try it. And basically what it will enable you to do is like for stuff like, I think the goal is to like just start with like scattering. If you want to scatter objects, go from it being a particle system to something that you do with nodes. And thank God we've needed that for so long. Like, I just did my forest tutorial, like a cabin in the woods in a forest. I just put that up a couple of days ago. It's going really well. You should check out the video if you haven't already. But yeah, that is a perfect example. Like, when you have a tree and it's on an object and it has to scatter a certain way, can you create rules so that other objects, like smaller plants that would survive in areas where there would be less sunlight, how do you have that as a rule system, like a hierarchy, so that these objects must be around these objects, etc.? You can't do that with particles, right? It's so outdated particles. So stuff like that is going procedural. It's geometry nodes. So Blender is one, but Maya also got the Bifrost engine, I think a couple of releases ago. I've heard it's pretty glitchy and pretty buggy and very slow, but it does have it. So things like scattering. Another use case is like if you're working on a game and it takes place in a city and you need to make a whole bunch of building models, right? Instead of having to model each building, go like, a building with big windows, a building with smaller windows and all this kind of thing, you would essentially create a program where you would have those parameters, much like if you've used Substance Designer, having exposed parameters so that you can do that, but having it for geometry, right? So it'd be like a building generator that you would create in a program, right? And you would do that for the brunt of the work. You would do this procedurally, and you just, and maybe you hit a button and it just like exports like infinite variations of different types of buildings, right? And then an artist would go in there and add the different touches, like have a hole in the building or a big, there's a bridge that goes under it or something like that. Like kind of the brunt of the work is done by an engine. So a game like Spider-Man, the latest Spider-Man on PS5, Miles Morales, I think they used Houdini for it. I know there's last Spider-Man, they used Houdini, so I'm sure. But that's a perfect example. I'm sure most of those buildings were done with procedural engines, programs that did most of the work and then stuff applied to it. So that I think is just gonna keep expanding out to the industry. So how will it affect you? I think certain workflows, like I said, scattering objects and making repeated objects of a certain type are going to become procedural. Right. So yeah, just basically keep your tabs on the industry and know when workflows change, because I think that isn't it's very important. So be on my list if you're not already. This Week in 3D, blunderguru.com/This Week in 3D if you want to sign up to that newsletter so that you get notified when things change, and it'd be interesting. Speaking of cutting edge, here's my advert. At Polygon, we read the industry trends, we talk to artists, studios, and then we deliver the highest quality assets on the market that solve real problems. So for example, plants. We looked at all the plant models available on the market. We looked at what worked, what didn't, and then we tried to create the best photorealistic plant that solves problems. So we realized that plants need to work in multiple render engines. They need to look good. They need to be photoreal, but they also need to look like plants. And a lot of photo scan stuff is sort of like thrown together. It doesn't look very good. So we used a hybrid method of photo scanning the leaves, getting the right translucency, alpha maps, normal maps, all that kind of stuff. And then we also procedurally generated that to create the rest of the plant. So it's a hybrid approach. Whereas for things like rocks, we did the exact same thing, discovered a delighting process using some proprietary methods for getting rid of shadows in rocks, so that things are like ultra crisp and they look good from any angle. But we did that like the traditional way, just photo scanning, right? So every asset that we create has its own unique challenges, and we try to solve them using our artists that do all the brunt work so you don't have to. So that is what Polygon is about. Speaking of proceduralism, we also dive really deep into that this year. So we created a bunch of what we call generators. So the typical way, like the traditional method for thinking of downloading a texture is like, I need a brick texture. Let's go to this website and download a texture. Procedural workflows enable you to download one texture of brick and then change it depending on whatever type of brick you want, whether it's like dark brick, rectangular, square brick, the brick that pops out of the wall. Actually, the generator doesn't do that, but it does most other things. It'll do everything. So those substance files, they're kind of, everyone knows about them, but ours do sort of everything within a category. It's expansive. So far we've got brick. We have also got fabric, leather, marble, terrazzo, and wood. Each one of these things spent thousands of man hours on. I think one of the ones was like 1,700 hours. A lot of hours went into this. So that basically it does everything, and you have one little file and you can create infinite variations of terrazzo or marble or wood for your latest project. So that's what you can get at Polygon. So POLIIGON.com. It is my company. It is a team of guys that I love, and they are really good at what they do. So if you want to take your artwork to the next level, Polygon.com. All right. Hey, that might be the smoothest advert I've ever done. Probably because I was reading off a script. I thought maybe I should make a script. So I did. All right. We've got 3 more to go, guys. 3 more trends in 2021. Number 5, real-time ray tracing for creation. So we know about real-time ray tracing in games, right? RTX, NVIDIA did their whole thing. It's the new thing. And then it's kind of cool in a game, but it slows down performance a lot, right? That's what it became. Real-time ray tracing. It's cool and everything, but what I'm talking about is when you're creating something, so within your 3D software. So stuff that actually affects you as an artist, not the gamer, not the end consumer. So now most engines, almost all engines, have viewport denoising through NVIDIA's optics, whatever product you call it, right? That uses AI to look at the noise of the image and then figure out what the true image should be without having to spend much extra render time. So it does that in the viewport now. So Blender just got it, I think, a couple of releases ago. You click a little button, and then as you move around the viewport, it's denoised and it looks like everything's lit the way it should, and it is amazing. And I have a Titan RTX. In fact, I have two of them, but of course in the viewport, it only uses one of the cards. It's when you render that it uses both. So I have the Titan, and it's pretty good. It's almost real time, right? The 3090 is more than twice as fast, I believe, per 3090. It is drastically cheaper than the RTX Titan. It is $1,500 is what it retails for. You can't find them anywhere in stock. I know, I want to get them too. But when they do become in stock, hopefully in 2021, then you'll be able to pick one up for hopefully around $1,500 or less. And when you do, you'll be able to join the League of Artists now enjoying real-time denoising, basically real-time, I should say, basically. It's like a couple of frames off maybe, but it's incredible. So I've seen some footage of people using the 3090 and the viewport denoising. Yeah, it basically looks like real time. And it's real time. It's not like Unreal Engine or RTX where they show you the before and after and you go like, I don't know which one is better. I told NVIDIA this on the phone, like, because we were talking about something and I'm like, I got to give you some feedback, guys. Your marketing kind of dropped the ball on the RTX thing because I couldn't tell, and I'm a 3D artist, I couldn't tell what was better. And if you read the comments on YouTube videos, like some of them, it was like Metro Exodus, RTX on and off, and like the before and after example, like in some of them, inarguably, the before example looked better than the after. And I assume it's because the game was made with baked lighting in mind. And then NVIDIA was like, oh, can you demo the RTX? And they had to go through and like strip the lighting back to nothing and then make it be lit dynamically. And it didn't have the same polish as the proper game did. And it just felt like, So yeah. And I also just looked at some before and after of the Spider-Man Miles Morales on PS5, which has real-time ray tracing. You hit a button and you go, do you want it on or do you want it off? And it drops the performance. It goes from 60 frames a second to 30 at 4K, which is still amazing, but 60 still looks way better. And between them, like, yes, if it's a very reflective surface, so if like they had like characters standing on like this glass floor and like obviously it looks amazing there. You can see your own reflection when you like land on a building, like through the windows and everything. That looks great, but when you're flying through the city, I mean, you can't really tell the difference. So yeah, for the end user, it's like, do I want to take the performance hit? I think buttery smooth is a lot better. So anyways, point is, I think it's a big deal. I think that the 3090 is essentially, it's basically for creation, what I'm talking about for this point, it's two tech that sort of has come together. It's optics denoising and it's the 3090. Both of them thanks to NVIDIA. So because of that, us artists get to enjoy real, true, proper ray tracing, no fakery, where it's going to look exactly the way it will in the render because it's doing the render just in the viewport. And it's amazing. So check that out. Real-time ray tracing for creation. Number 6, virtual production goes from fringe to standard. So virtual production, if you haven't seen any of the videos, it's probably popped up in your feed on YouTube. There's a lot of hubbub around it, but basically the old method of shooting actors against a green screen is probably going to go away and be replaced with LED walls and real-time VFX as they act. Wow. Why do I think that? Well, green screens are convenient for artists and maybe production as a whole because you get to fine-tune and polish the product right down to where it needs to be. It is very inconvenient for directors, camera operators, and actors who have to act on a green screen and go, wow, stepping out into this imaginary cave. Look at this thing. And then the director goes, can you pretend there's like an alien that's crawling along the roof and you're reacting to it? And they go, ooh. And they go, wasn't real enough. Do it again. Oh, So these LED walls, basically they're using Unreal Engine in real time. And they've got artists, VFX artists on set with like a team of like computers, and the director will go like, we need a canyon, move those rocks from there to there, put the tree there, because I want to have a shot that sort of goes from here to here, and the artist goes like, oh shit, and they move the things around. But then the director gets to have the camera and move around, and it's all shot in camera. It kind of blew my mind. I'm like, okay, so when do they actually do for the final shot? Do they add that stuff back in? And it's like, no, it's shot from the camera, and that's what you get. And that's crazy. Like that, I'm like, whoa, there'd be a lot of sacrifices there. And like you have to change a lot to think about how you go about it, because that like if you're shooting Transformers or something, like the Transformer model has to be finished and, production ready on day one of shoot, not like do the shoot and then, work on it for the next year to get the finished Transformer model. So it flips the process, but the advantages are huge. If you listen to Jon Favreau, he's been really the big, I guess, proponent, is that the word? The guy, advocate for the thing. Because he used it on The Mandalorian, I believe. That's his, right? The Mandalorian? Or his is The Lion King. He used, maybe that's a different thing. Anyways, the point is the whole idea of flipping the production from doing it all at the end versus doing it on set with the camera live is a huge change, and directors love it. Camera operators love it, and actors will love it because they get to act on scene with the real stuff around them. So, the other huge thing, like reflections. So The Mandalorian has a character in like shiny stuff, and if it was shot on green screen, that would be horrible. You'd have to figure that all out. Get rid of the green fringe across, shiny plated metal. But with an LED wall, it wraps around them. So it's, I didn't even explain it, but it's like a 360, it's a volume. It's a 360 thing that pans around them. And it links up with the camera motion. So as the depth changes, they can make the scene look bigger or smaller depending on the depth. It's very clever. Anyways, I think that is going to go from being a fringe to standard. Maybe not in this year, but certainly it's on the rise. I think green screens will be used for select things, but I think virtual production, especially things that are like VFX heavy, right? So, like Avengers type productions, I just think the advantages are huge to just go, virtual production. Anyways, so how does this affect you? I would say if you were in VFX, I'd be learning Unreal Engine 4 and 5 ASAP, because that is what is used. I don't know of Unity being used for it or any other thing, but I would say do that. And even if you don't know it well enough, at least when one day your studio director goes, hey, does anyone know Unreal Engine? You get to put up your hand and maybe stay on payroll, right? Maybe you get to go to the production shoot that day and get introduced to the virtual volume, the volume, and figure out how it works on the job, but you have a limited knowledge of it, as limited as it may be. It will help you just sort of stay up to date on tech and not be one of those dinosaurs that just says, oh, I've been doing 2D my whole life. I'm going to stay with that because Disney always has jobs in 2D, right? You don't become one of those guys. So that's what I would do. And also, if you're a shareholder of Epic, congratulations. You're probably going to get richer. Number 7, and the final mention is VR workflows are likely to increase. So headset adoption is very slow for consumers, as I'm sure everybody knows. Nobody has too many friends that have VR headsets. They're usually like your mate who is like really into everything. He was the first one to get a 3D printer. He's always lining up to get the latest tech. He's got the developer release of things. It's like, it's still that fringe thing for consumers, but in production for artists that are creating things, it's on the rise. So tools like Gravity Sketch and Medium, Adobe Medium, they bought it from I don't know who, but those two things, like they're used in production already for concepts. So it's sort of like just building like simple, like 3D scenes that just need to be like slapped, put together to like visualize things. It's gone from like concept sketching on paper to digital in Photoshop to Blender and other 3D tools to get perspective right, to now just being like put on the headset and like draw. And if you listen to my old interviews from 2 years ago with Phineas McManus, he's working on the new Avatar. I think it was 3 years ago. Like they've been using VR since then for concept sketching. So it's already been there, but it's been fringe of the industry, like artists using it. But up until now, most of 3D work has been done on the monitor, right? The brunt of 3D, monitor and mouse. Hopefully 2020 is the year that software starts stepping up and start increasing the VR capabilities of their software. So Unreal Engine seems to be the furthest along in terms of like a package that's adopted it. They've got a bunch of really cool stuff going on in there. Blender and 3ds Max has seen inspection. I know Blender does. I think 3ds Max, I remember seeing something of that. And ZBrush, so far as I know, it's the one that would be the most likely to benefit from this workflow because you get to sculpt and sketch in VR, has nothing. As far as I know. I don't know. It's probably like a preview tech. I'm sure someone, the Pixelogic enterprise, is working on something, but so far nothing. I think that, look, I mean, it doesn't make any sense that we're working on a monitor and with a mouse to operate things in a 3D environment, right? Especially, I mean, this is why it makes so much sense for concept art, because you need to visualize how a scene is going to look in virtual space, as in like where the camera is going to be, where characters and avatar or whatever is going to be. And seeing it on a screen like this doesn't give you the perspective, doesn't show you how things relate to others in terms of space, because that's not how your eyes work. It's not very good at reading things like that. If you put on goggles, you can actually be in the scene. You can see where the tree is. You can turn around and then see where the tank is. It's a completely different way to visualize things. And I think that 3D is eventually going in that direction, and that 3D software packages, Max, Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D, Lightwave will not, I'm sure. I don't know. Lightwave's still there. It's kicking around. I think that they're all going to move to VR workflows eventually. Like I was thinking this the other day, if I can clear my throat. Sorry. What would you call it? The 3D. Camera tracking, right? The latest forest animation that I did of the cabin in the woods, the camera in the forest, it was like a smooth pan in. I wanted to have it like walking, like the camera's looking down and then it's looking up and you've got footsteps. You could manually animate it. I could have done it with like motion. I could have got my DSLR and stepped outside and then recorded something and then ported that over there. I could have done that. But I don't know where things are in space. I don't know where the trees are. I don't know where the cabin is. I want to have that interaction. And that's something that The Lion King wanted for that, the new 2019 version of The Lion King. They used exactly this tech for that. They had it all in VR. I think Unreal Engine, as far as I know, where the characters are going to be. And they recorded the camera motion virtually with like just live camera motion, so that as the character animates and moves from one end of the scene or whatever, the cameraman can move just the way a real camera would, and it gets that real feeling. That's a huge advantage. And it's something that you can really only do with VR. There's a channel, what's it called? Cinematography, Unreal Engine, or virtual cinematography. There's one guy who's known, his name is Matt something. That narrows it down. I don't know. I'll put the link maybe in the description, but that guy's got like whole series talking about it. He's done like talks for Unreal Engine and stuff. But that workflow, it's similar to the virtual production that I just talked about, but it's also for animated fully CG projects with no live actors. It's for like the previs side of things. It's very cool. Anyways, I think VR is going to get there. It's just going to increase this year. So that's the trend to look out for. Now, honorable mentions, because there's a bunch of other tech here that I think is worth talking about, but doesn't get its own point because I don't know how important or whatever it's going to be. Next gen gaming consoles, okay? Because PS5 just was released. I think there's an Xbox. I don't know what it's called. That's how you know PlayStation's going to win the console war. I saw everything to do with PlayStation 5. I know exactly what the tech does and everything, and I don't even know the name of the Xbox. Sorry if you're an Xbox fanboy, but I don't know what it is. Anyways, last year, 2020, PlayStation 5 and Unreal Engine 5 both had massive announcements. So there was discussion that low-res gaming models might become a thing of the past because PlayStation 5 was supposed to have like SSD instant load, so you wouldn't have to wait for loading anything. And as well as that, Unreal Engine 5 has this nanite technology, which is supposed to stream geometry and automatically tessellate it depending on how close it is to the camera. Very cool stuff. And then the same with lighting. PlayStation 5 is supposed to be able to do ray tracing. The new Spider-Man does that. And Unreal Engine 5 has got what's called Lumite, which is, what do you call it? It doesn't use ray tracing, but it does enable dynamic lighting. It's like a different thing. It uses like small, medium, and large shapes, and it handles it differently depending on how big it is and far away from the camera. It's very interesting. But anyways, I didn't mention this as one of the main points because since those announcements came out, PlayStation 5 came out, and we can see that load times are still very much there. They are much faster than the PlayStation 4, but it's still like you're loading up a game, it could take 30 seconds. Some cases it's anywhere from like 3 to 10 times as fast as PlayStation 4, but it's still there. So the idea of like having unlimited geometry that just you don't have to worry about it anymore, like LODs, that was the thing. Like people said LODs wouldn't be needed. It doesn't seem to be true. Now, same with ray tracing, like it seems to hinder performance. So I can't see lighting. And that's the other thing, like it doesn't even seem to be full ray tracing. It just seems to be reflections. Seems to be the same lighting. I mean, I'm just looking at the Spider-Man example. It usually takes like a couple of years since a next-gen release for the next games to actually start using it properly. I suspect this ray tracing thing was maybe slapped onto Spider-Man. So it's all very in progress at the moment. It seems like it's not as hyped as was expected, right? As it usually goes. But Unreal Engine 5 is still yet to be released. That's coming out next year, and that'll be interesting. If Nanite does work as expected and you can stream geometry, then yeah, maybe the model size doesn't matter. Maybe the number of polys it has. I mean, in their demonstration, they said this is raw, straight from ZBrush, this high-res sculpt, and it's being streamed into the game. And it was like, what? And yeah, at first I was like, oh, exciting. No LODs at all. We can just like take from ZBrush and throw it in there. And then people on Twitter are like, wait a minute. What about download sizes? And I'm like, oh yeah, good point. Like a ZBrush model is like 2 gig. Like you're not going to have a sculpture in the back wall of a game like Tomb Raider or something, and that's just like direct from ZBrush and it's 2 gigabytes. No one's going to be able to download the game because it's going to be petabytes in size. So yeah, obviously geometry matters to an extent. It just probably won't matter as much as it does right now. So I don't know. That's why I sort of put it here as like a maybe this will impact pipelines. I suspect workflows will change some way. It's just not yet clear. So I think watch GDC and other educational content that you can find related to the industry, any talks this year, and just see what gaming industry workflows have changed because of the new tech, because I'm certain it is impacted in some way. Next gen gaming always changes things. I just don't know to what degree with this release because it's still very early. Anyways, smaller note here, demand for simulations on GPU is growing. So EmberGen is smoke fire simulation software that uses the GPU to do real-time smoke sim and fire sim, whatever. And it's incredible. I've used it. It's like, oh my God, this is real time. I can change and make a tornado and I can change this feature and it's happening real time. If you've used smoke sims previous, you know how painful it is. For every little change you make, you have to wait a minute and then go, what was the value that I changed and what difference did it make? I can't even see. So having things in real time is just, you can't underestimate like how big of a boon this is for your output. Like you are able to iterate and create something far rapidly. It'll take like maybe days instead of months. So it's huge. And that was EmberGen, which is this new thing. I think Octane, I don't think they bought them. It wasn't acquired, but I know Octane users get it for free somehow. So I don't know, they've got some partnership there, but Houdini in their latest release, they have announced GPU-based solvers for their smoke sim as well. And the cool thing about Houdini is that you can use the GPU to visualize it, to get the basic look of it and do all that stuff right, and then use the CPU solver for the final thing, which is more accurate, and you get that final look from the CPU. So that sounds exciting. I don't know how reliable it is. Don't know. Obviously, the proof is always proof is in the pudding. No, that's not it. It's one of those phrases. It's like the hype train doesn't mean anything. It's like how it actually works that matters. So anyway, another note here, AR will take off, maybe. AR. Augmented reality. So I say this because there's LiDAR on the iPhone now, on the latest iPad as well, previous to that. And Apple is obviously working on some sort of VR, AR thing. If you look up Apple glasses, you can see hints of it. It's rumored that either this year, 2021, or next year, 2022, that they are going to be releasing the product. So it might be a VR headset, or it might be an AR headset, which would be like transparent lenses, like glasses that you would wear. And then you would see, much like the Google glasses that that was canned many years ago. Basically that's what it's rumored to be. But I think the biggest thing it would disrupt would be the e-commerce industry, because I believe the idea is, you should be able to like visualize a product from your phone. Like, I mean, you can do it on your phone now, but maybe you do it on your glasses and go like, how's this dress going to look on me? And you can stand in front of the mirror with the glasses on and see how it's going to look on you, because it's through transparent a screen, but it's got the screen on. It'll be cool, right? So that's the idea. So I think probably going to be directly competing with HoloLens or Magic Leap, Frog, whatever it's called, that one that's supposed to be the best at it. But anyways, it's coming. It's coming. I don't know how this is going to affect the 3D, but I know it's probably just going to be good for us because we're already experts in 3D. So it's just going to be great. More and more work for us, more people joining it. And there's going to be everyone from restaurant owners to everyone talking about how do I digitize my dish so that people can see what they're going to order at my restaurant whilst they're at home. And they can go, oh, so that's what the pizza looks like as I visualize it on my table. I'll order it, right? That's the idea. Okay. Small note here. The death of HDRs? ? I think HDRs have been great up until now because they have enabled artists to get photorealistic lighting and reflections in their scene. It's a 360 panorama image thing. I think they're dying because I just tried the new sky texture in Blender, the updated version, whatever it's called, and there's an equivalent thing in Unreal Engine 4. V-Ray's got something similar. And basically, instead of an HDR, you just use this one node, plug it in there, and you get to change the elevation where the sun is in the sky, the rotation, the air pollution, the size of the sun, everything. Incredible. And it offers so many advantages because when I was making this forest scene, I could choose exactly where I wanted the sun to be in it, and I got the exact right lighting. It was incredible. So I actually used it to like do this sort of like scattergun approach where I like randomized the noise for each of the values of the sun so that when I woke up, I had like 250 variations of lighting choices for my scene. It's part of my forest tutorial. If you haven't seen it, check that out. The one thing it doesn't do, because HDRs include this in an HDR, obviously, is clouds and mountains. So I actually think these are going to be two new categories that are an opportunity for people who sell models. Because when I picked up the sky texture thing, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. How do I cover up that empty horizon with some landscape, right? Because that's the great thing about HDRs is you don't have to worry about it. You got mountains and trees or whatever that was included with the HDR. It's just in the photo. You don't have that, so you have this empty hole in it. And I covered it up with some of the trees from the forest so you couldn't see it. But I tried to find mountains online and they're all like either way too old or like we need some like backdrop mountains for sale. So that's an opportunity. And then same with clouds. So I think most renderers, all renderers actually, major renderers support OpenVDB now, which is like a format for volumetrics. It's like a volume object type. And that means you can sell clouds now. So if you look on TurboSquid, you can find cloud packs and it's pretty cool. So I think, and in fact, I just saw for the Bifrost engine update for Maya in one of their release videos, they showed some of the clouds that they made with Bifrost. I don't know how, but they looked incredible. It looked like a photo. It was like from a plane, like taken above the clouds and like all these scattered clouds. It looked really good. I was like, oh, they're like best looking CG clouds I've ever seen. Anyways, that was a bit of a tangent. And then the final one, as a honorable mention, I would say multi-user workflows are set to increase. So, and that is the final one to mention, really. But multi-user is when you open a blend file, when you open your 3D scene, whatever it is, and in whatever software, you can look at it and only you. If you want to have your coworker also work on the same scene as you, you have to tell them, work on this one object in a separate blend file. And then when you finish it, we can import it into this one. And then we've got the master here, right? And, there's linking as well. So you can have it so that when they save it, it updates it over here. But it's still like, you can't have a scene file where you've got city blocks and have an artist move a city block from here to here and another artist change the lighting and another artist do this. And that's a problem when you've got artists across multiple departments, like Pixar, right? For each of their shots, they have, animators animating things. Then has to be handed off to the lighting department so they can do their lighting, and then it has to be done to this. And then it all has to be done in sequence. You can't have them work on something at the same time. So multi-user workflows, I think, are especially going to be prevalent in 2021 because, hey, pandemic, 2020 was a doozy. It's not going anywhere in 2021 though. The vaccine and all that stuff, I'm sure will take a little while to roll out. And the changes from this year are going to ripple through the technology sector for a while. So everyone knows remote work is on the rise and a bunch of things. We're going to feel it for the next decade. Things are going to change probably for the better for a lot of things, right? Less commuting, housing prices close to a city. Maybe they're going to fall a little bit because people aren't going to be living as close because they can work from home now. A lot of really, really good things, some bad things. I don't know. But I think overall, one of the things we'll probably notice in 3D is multi-user workflows increasing. So Unreal Engine, again, is one of the ones that is furthest along here because Epic made Fortnite. And good for them because they now have a machine that prints money. At least at its peak, like $300 million a month, which is pretty good. So they're putting everything into Unreal Engine and trying to make it cool. So they've got multi-user, I just watched like a demonstration of like 4 users working on a scene at the exact same time. Now, here's a cool thing. I talked about this, I think at the start of the year, I tweeted something. I'm like, wow, Unreal Engine's got this thing. When's it going to be in Blender? Because I think this is going to be big for the future. And people are like, oh, I don't know, whatever. And then I think this year, was it, what's the name of that studio? There was a big studio that is a supporter of Blender. And Ubisoft, that's right. I think they made this. They made the multi-user add-on for Blender. So I don't know how functional it is. I don't know the bugs or the problems with it or whatever. I'm sure there's limitations, but they demonstrated it in the 2020 Blender conference, which was online, where everyone sort of threw in a video, and it's pretty cool. So check that out if you haven't already. That is the podcast, guys. Oh my goodness. And I've lost my voice. Whew. All right. Thank you for listening, guys. I shouldn't be so out of breath by the end of it. That was episode 7. You can subscribe to this podcast now on Apple iTunes, as well as Spotify and all the other major places you get your podcast from. So you can check it out there. Or, of course, you can just watch the video on YouTube and see my big dumb face for an hour. I hope this year is a great one. And I hope last year wasn't too catastrophic for you. Maybe it was even good. Maybe you got to spend some time with the family like I did. Maybe too much time with the family, right? Maybe you need an escape, like I said in my forest tutorial. So thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you in the next podcast. And that's it. Bye.